Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this afternoon session. Today, we'll take a trek through ArcGIS Pro, Esri's next generation desktop. Little Star Trek humor there, if anyone gets that. Okay, I'll get straight into it. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty technical aspects of today's presentation, I just wanted to roll it back a bit and show you the ArcGIS desktop platform now, and where ArcGIS Pro sits as part of the platform. Now, ArcGIS Pro has been designed as a separate application, designed on 64-bit processing software, so it really leverages and harnesses your machine's power to run both 2D and 3D processing operations. Now, note how in the diagram it sits next to ArcMap and ArcCatalog and ArcGlobe and ArcScene. And that's because it's been designed as a separate product that you can run side by side. Now, if you are an avid ArcMap user, fear not, you have the option to import existing ArcMap MXD or map documents into ArcGIS Pro, and away you go. Now, ArcGIS Pro enables you to access content that's part of your organization's portal. Now, your portal could be your portal for ArcGIS Online that's on-premise, or your ArcGIS Online account that's part of your organization. Access your online content and services, or your organization's portal content and services, and then do some analysis, and then push this out to desktop, or back out to the web, or onto devices and create apps. So ArcGIS Pro really sits firmly and well within the Web GIS enablement and capability of desktop. Now, a couple of my favorite things about ArcGIS Pro that I'll go through this afternoon. The first one being that it's contextual and intuitive. Now, that's not to say that it's going to read your mind, but it certainly will read your commands as you are working through the project. Now, as you click on a layer, for example, you get a contextual ribbon-based interface that comes up, and it gives you additional options to work with your data. Now, ArcGIS Pro is also project-based, and that means it's based on a folder structure. When you create a brand new project, it creates a new folder, and that folder contains a geodatabase, a toolbox, a section for multiple maps, multiple layouts, multiple scenes, as well as multiple styles. So all of this is encompassed in one project folder for one project. Now, the interface has been simplified, and that means that your map is always the focus of what you're working with. ArcGIS Pro works with panes, so as soon as you start to run a geoprocessing tool, that pane opens up on the side of the panel, and your map area remains the focus. Now, ArcGIS Pro is integrated with ArcGIS Online, which means you can quickly, easily, and seamlessly access and even edit feature services. As part of your organization's portal, access the content and services, update them, run analysis, and then share them back out again to your organization. Now, ArcGIS Pro is a combined 2D and 3D experience. That means you can convert from 2D to 3D if your data is Z-enabled, and you can even put these side by side and link them and move them simultaneously. Now, one of my favorites is that you can have multiple maps and layouts. And that's not to say just in the folder structure, but literally in your map view. Multiple maps, multiple layouts to give you better visualization of your data. ArcGIS Pro is a fusion of multiple applications. Think of ArcMap, ArcCatalog, ArcScene, ArcGlobe, and even City Engine, all wrapped up in one neat bundle. Look at your 2D views and your 3D scenes. Open multiple ones, open multiple maps, and even link them side by side to get better visualization. Now, once you've done your heavy analysis in Pro, there's multiple ways to share your data as well as your geoprocessing results. Now, the traditional way that we've become accustomed to sharing our maps is as static maps. And in Pro, you still have the option to export your layout to PDF format. Now, you can also share layer packages, map packages, geoprocessing packages, and entire projects to your organization's portal. Now, one thing that I really like about Pro is you have the option to right-click and to share a feature alone as a feature layer. But I think all of this is best described and shown in a demonstration. So join me as we trek through ArcGIS Pro. So this is the ArcGIS Pro interface. It doesn't look too different from ArcMap, but I will show you a little bit of the interface. We still have the contents pane on the left, and this shows us the content of our current map view. On the right-hand side, we have the catalog pane. And again, here you can see the different access points for maps, toolboxes, databases, and even multiple layouts. I mentioned before that Pro is based on a folder-based structure. So when I opened up an existing project, in this existing project, I have a geodatabase as well as a toolbox that were automatically created once I created the project. That means as you create a project, you get an included geodatabase and toolbox, and automatically all of your results go straight to that geodatabase, unless you want to point them somewhere else. You also have the option to add in or connect to existing folders. So I've already connected to an existing folder here for Esri, and what I'll do next is show you how to import a map document that I created in ArcMap straight into Pro and start working with that. Now notice up the top here we have different tabs depending on the data we're looking at. So right now I'm just looking at my contents pane and a catalog view, but what I want to do is import a map. And what we'll be looking at today is just some buildings and trees from data that we have from Digital Globe. And I'll be looking specifically at the area of Fairfield in New South Wales. So as you can see, it's just an existing MXD document. And by importing this existing MXD document, I import all the symbology that I had previously created, any extents I had set, any information that I had initially set in my MXD document that was saved, imports directly into Pro. And there you have it. I've quickly and easily and seamlessly moved from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. Okay. Now, I'm not really happy about the symbology that I have here. And all of these buildings and trees in Bossley Park are really just based on an LGA for Fairfield. So I'll remove this, and I'll just add a base map for a bit of context. You still have the option to add base maps, you can still create bookmarks, and you can quickly and easily start to navigate and explore your map area. Now, I mentioned before that ArcGIS Pro is contextual and intuitive. By clicking on a layer, I get a feature layer tab that opens up. And this feature layer tab gives me options that enable me to change the appearance of the data, to add or change the labeling for my data, or to change the design or run analysis for the data. What I want to do is change the appearance, and I'll change the symbology. Now note that the symbology pane has opened up just to the right of my map view, so my map view is still the main priority area for this specific project. Now this is the thing that really got me to start playing with Pro. I'm an avid ArcMap user. But when I came across this, now note that my symbology right now is a pale pinkish color. As I select new symbology, it automatically updates in my map, which I didn't have previously in ArcMap. So I really like that. It means that as I'm changing symbols, if I don't like what I see, I pick whatever I like next, without having to go through applying and then resetting and changing. I'll just change the properties for this, that way it stands out better. And I'm happier. I'm not too happy about my trees though, so again, I'll change the symbology for that. Now, in Pro, you have more realistic options for symbology. And I'm just going to pick a pine tree. Again, as I change it, it updates in the map display. They're fairly small at the moment. So this is starting to look better. I'm already happier with this than what I originally created in ArcMap. Now, I mentioned before that you have the option to convert your data from 2D to 3D. Now, both my buildings layer as well as my trees have a height attribute, so they're Z enabled, which means I can convert these to 3D. And to do this, there's a really nifty little convert tool. So by clicking on that, I get to convert my map from 2D to 3D. And here I have it. So this is just a local scene I've created of that data. And there are all my buildings and all my trees. Now, as part of Fairfield City Council's Department for Tree Trimming and Inspections, we send out teams to specific individuals, property owners in particular, where they have trees on their properties. So tree trimmings and inspections in Fairfield have to be done by council because trees are protected. So we've had a couple of property owners who have sent us in requests and reports that there are some trees on their own properties or neighboring properties that either cast shadows in the afternoon over their garden beds or drop branches and leaves onto their properties. So what I've done now is just a quick selection of buildings that are 4 meters or shorter and trees that are 4 meters or taller. Now what I've done is extrude the values. Now notice how I have 3D layers here. So to get these buildings to stand upwards from the ground, you would just change the appearance of those and extrude your values based on their absolute height. And because I already have a height field, these buildings stand up from the ground. Now you'll notice that my trees look a little bit different here as I zoom in. And that's because I have gone ahead and added preset realistic trees to my view. Now I'll take a quick look to see how tree shadows go against just open parks. Now note that really smooth zooming in, that's not anything that I've had to customize. That all comes with the software, and this is changing how you navigate to view specific data. Now I'll also show you another really cool thing that I like about Pro, and that's this Illumination tab for your scene. I get to display shadows in 3D, and I've just changed the altitude to 45 degrees, so I can see the angle of the sun at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I can see that the trees, which are realistic and raised at the absolute height according to that height or Z-enabled field, cast a shadow on the park. But this doesn't give me too much insight to what the property owner mentioned to me earlier. So I'll zoom into a specific area where trees actually cast shadows on buildings. And there we go. I have specific trees that are casting shadows on buildings. So what I'll then do is just create a quick map layout of the data that I have. But before I do, I want to be able to pick specific buildings that are within 3 meters of trees. Now, I don't have time to run the analysis now as individual tools, but I've just created a quick model here that'll do a selection by location of buildings within 3 meters of trees, and then copy those features and export them as a brand new layer within the map. So if I validate and run that tool, a new layer will appear in the map area, and then I'll be able to see what the selection is. Now once this is finished running and I've got the brand new selection, I'll create a layout of this, and then I'll print this out so that my tree inspectors can take these out to specific residents when they're going to trim or inspect trees and buildings. So that's the selected features there. And that's it. So what I do after this is just create a quick layout. And as Celine showed us before, you can create layouts, add pictures, add logos. But one of my favorite functions is the ability to add a 3D inset map. You can even activate this and then zoom into the area that you want. And this makes for a really good map if I need to go out into the field. There we go. Now for your layouts, I mentioned before that you have multiple options to share. So if I just go up to the share option here, I can export this to PDF. Very quick and simple, just PDF documents that I've created beforehand, and these will then be printed out and given to each individual property owner as we go to their houses or mailed out to them. Now, another thing that I want to do is share this entire map as a web map. So if I go to share, I have the option to share just the web layers or the web map. So before I do that, I will show you this. If I just wanted to share just one layer, I can choose to share what I have here as a web layer without all the other feature layers in this map. But for now, I want to share a web map. And a brand new sharing pane opens up on the right. And just like you would an ArcMap, you'd add a title, a summary, some tags, and choose to share it either to your organization through Portal, or you'd share it to specific groups or out to the public. You can also set specific configurations just to share an exploratory map or an editable map, or just to visualize by sharing tiles. So I'll analyze and share that. And here's the shared map here. And there it is as part of my organization's ArcGIS Online. Now I can then create a group for the tree inspectors and share and create these maps and update them just with the data that I need. By updating just the feature layer as time goes on, they get to update the map online and then create either printouts or share it via their website before they go out to speak to property owners. I'm really hoping that at this part of the presentation, you're all sitting on the edge of your seats and you're really wondering, how on earth do I access ArcGIS Pro? How many of you here are ArcMap users? So if you're an ArcMap user and you have maintained licenses, then you already have access to ArcGIS Pro. The first thing that you'd need to do is just download a copy of the software via your organization's Esri. If you aren't part of an organization, you can actually get a copy of Pro with an organizational account as a trial. Now, once you've downloaded the software, just have your administrator assign an ArcGIS Pro license to your identity. Now, your identity is your username, and that's what you'd use to sign into your organization's portal or ArcGIS Online. Once you signed in, open up the software, and away you pro. Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at the ArcGIS Pro roadmap. Now, Pro is in its 6th release right now, and with each new release, they add so much more functionality. Now, we're expecting the next release at about Christmas time this year, and we'll see the utility network model come through, as well as attribute rules, oblique imagery, offline web maps, and layers. Midterm, so sometime next year, we'll look to add parcel management dimensions as well as model builder if then else branching logic. And finally, long-term changes will include animated symbols and presentations. If you want to keep track of the ArcGIS Pro changes in the roadmap ahead, you can access these through the GeoNet Community GIS applications, the ArcGIS Pro blog. Today's solution mix is really simple. ArcGIS Pro, everything was out of the box. I also used data, Geoscape and Digital Globe. Massive shout out to MDS. If you guys are interested in accessing or finding out how to get access to the data that I used today, please see Map Data Services. They have a great booth outside and they're more than keen to help. There are also fantastic resources regarding ArcGIS Pro, and if you have any ideas that you'd like to see added to Pro in future releases, I encourage you to go to ArcGIS Ideas, sign in with your identity, and get your friends to vote for your ideas as well. The more votes you have, the more they'll look at these ideas and look to adding that functionality in Pro. Now, we have great training resources, including introductory ArcGIS Pro training sessions and a brand new spatial stats and analysis using ArcGIS Pro. Thank you for trekking with me, and I hope you join me in becoming part of the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ta. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So now we have time for just a couple of questions. Does anyone have a question for Ta? If you do, could you please raise your hand? Anyone?
So we went through taking an MXD, an ArcMap document into ArcGIS Pro. During the transitional phase for an organisation, I think that, or particularly with mine, there's a bit of a problem with people going from the old to the new and learning. Is there a way to take a ArcGIS Pro document back to an MXD for those that aren't caught up?
Unfortunately, at this stage, there isn't that functionality. What we have found as a workaround for clients who've asked the same question is as they're doing their data updates in Pro, all those layers that you have that you've updated, you drag those back into ArcMap and then continue updating. But because Pro is the future of the desktop, yeah, it's converting, I guess, from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro. Yeah, no worries. We did have a really great question that came up while we were doing the tour, and that was part of the licensing options. A couple of people asked, how do you access licenses and how do I work offline? So originally, Pro was designed to be used with the named user licensing model, but Esri has updated that. So you now have the option as part of your organization to convert from named user to either an ESU authorization number for single-use dedicated licenses, or if you have concurrent use ArcMap licenses, you can convert the named users to concurrent use EFL numbers that sit on your license manager. You then connect to the license manager as you would for ArcMap. Just open up Pro, choose the option to configure licenses for license manager, and then access that way. If you wanted to work offline using Pro, with a named user, there's the option to configure the license to work offline. And what that does is it takes your named user access to offline mode. If you have a dedicated ESU authorization number, you won't have to worry about going offline because the license is maintained on your machine.
Cool. Any more questions? Anyone else?
Oh, great question. The question was, is the named user portal or ArcGIS Online? Either one. So for, with ArcGIS Enterprise Portal, you get named users and you can use those to access ArcGIS Pro. And with ArcGIS Online, if you have ArcMap desktop licenses, you'd get the named user access through ArcGIS Online. And those ones you can choose to convert to single user concurrent.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Ta.
Welcome.